Uh, I'm going to answer your questions first. You asked to tell us about us and the mission and mandate. And we were founded in 2002. And how that happened, a group of people from different organizations like the Daughters of Africa, the Caribbean Association, and different ones, they were getting together to do some Black History Month events, whatever. And what they found was that there was kind of some competition, I guess, with one another. And so that's how they decided they need to have an organization, the Saskatchewan African Canadian Heritage Museum. Of course, we have no artifacts, so that's not helpful. But at that time, because most of the people had, what they found is that no one in the group had been born in Saskatchewan. So they called my sister, who was kind of known in the community, and said they would like her to come onto the committee. And of course, she volunteered me because I was the family historian. So that's how I ended up there, and I've been there ever since, even though I had told them I wasn't going to be available for a while. And so the first event was held in 2005, and Jean Augustine, she was with the federal government, a person of African descent, and she was our guest speaker there. So then the next, what I wanted to talk to you about was our mission. It's to preserve and celebrate the heritage of people of African ancestry in Saskatchewan. And our actual mission in our brochure says, the Saskatchewan African Canadian Heritage Museum, Inc., SACHM, is a provincial organization whose primary purpose is to explore, research, celebrate, document, and preserve the history, heritage, contributions, and achievements of people of African descent in Saskatchewan. So that has been our goal. And somehow along the way, we've had some projects, and one of them has been our little Shad. I'll show you a picture of that in a moment, our book, and the honoring tree. And the tree came out in 2011, and that's what we consider them kind of our living legacy components of SACHM. So, and the first person that they discovered who had been in Saskatchewan that they could document was Dr. Alfred Schmidt Shad. And he was born in 1869 in Ontario, Canada. He came to Saskatchewan to Kanistano to teach in 1896 and went back home and got a medical degree in Ontario in 1898 and returned to Saskatchewan. Well, he also went to England to get some of his medical degree. He returned to Saskatchewan and did end up in the Melfort area. But the story goes that what he did was when he got there, they wouldn't let him be a medical doctor for anyone except the indigenous people and the animals. So he was a veterinarian. And it wasn't until a man of European descent became very ill and there was no doctor around, and Dr. Shad saved his life. And since then, Dr. Shad has become very important. But at that time, he was a farmer, a veterinarian, a journalist, a politician, a pharmacist. He owned a pharmacy, and I think he owned a newspaper too. And he died in 1915 in Winnipeg. So in Melfort, you probably don't know about their museum, and I haven't had a chance to even be there to look at the doctor's office that they put up there on behalf of him. So I have to do that someday. The other thing that we have as a legacy is the Shiloh Baptist Church near Maidstone there. And it was built in 1911 and last used in 1945. There's a cemetery too there, and I think it was last used in 44. But in 1991, it was designated as a municipal heritage property. And then in 2018, the Saskatchewan government designated it a provincial heritage property. And we had a celebration up there in 2019, and many descendants came back for that. Now, my family came my dad's side came in 1905, and my mom's side, 1906, pardon me, and my mom's side came with this group, the Shiloh people in 1910, and she was, the border crossing says she was going to Maidstone, but she and her husband and family ended up in the Amber Valley settlement in Alberta. And sometime after 1916, when her husband passed away, she moved to North Battleford. So I personally don't have any connection with the Shiloh people, except to say I do have connections through marriage. Our family, my grandfather, who came in 1906 to Regina, moved to the Rosetown area. He homesteaded out there, and he had 10 children. And they were the only Black family in that area. There were some near Prelate and in the south and in the north. But back in those days, of course, intermarriage wasn't very well accepted. So the 10 children, had to find wives and husbands elsewhere. And what's interesting is the people in Maidstone, they felt they needed to find wives and husbands elsewhere. So they would send their children down to the farm and to try to find a husband or a wife. And so two of my uncles married people from the Maidstone area, and two of my aunts married people from the Maidstone group. So that's my only connection there. So we have, of course, my family were early settlers. And so that's another thing that goes into our virtual museum is the early settlers. Something else that happened early were baseball teams in Saskatchewan. That's another kind of heritage we have. Of course, the Indian Head Rockets are quite well known. I've already mentioned that we had the honoring tree there in the Wascana Park. And there's our book, Little Shad, and it has now been made into French. It just came out in, I think it was out in November, I do. And here's the Provincial Heritage Property designation. In 1910, 12 families founded Saskatchewan's first and only African-American farming settlement in the rural municipality of Eldon. These families and others that followed came seeking land and freedom from the racial segregation of their native Oklahoma. In 1911, they built a simple one-room hewed log meeting house that served as a place of worship and community gathering. The Shiloh Cemetery was established in 1913 as a place for their traditional burial customs. And despite racism that also exists in Canada, these African-American pioneers persevered and became respected members of the community. They are still remembered as the Shiloh people after this rustic log church where they once worshipped. Now, the interesting thing of the families that are left there, there's really only one family left near the Maidstone area, but there are several families, I think, that still have descendants in North Battleford and that area. So then our virtual museum, that's what ours was about. So right now, our virtual museum is being worked on by a new company because we had it changed, I think, for the third time in 2017 when we got a grant. But what happened with that is they trained us, but none of us were ever able to operate it. So except for a few things so we couldn't even put new things in there, especially pictures. We just weren't able to add pictures. So I'm meeting on Monday with the group, and hopefully we were supposed to have it ready by February, but it just hasn't happened. And so by March, April, we'll have a brand new looking thing site. So our website is about, our virtual museum is about, it gives these different things about how to become a member, how to donate. We're a charitable organization. We have we give out tax donation receipts. We've kind of come to the conclusion that for our events, what all we will do is, of course, February Black History Month. Well, we call it now African Canadian Black History Month. That we would be responsible for getting that, making sure that the minister recognized that as for February, and so we would have events there. And so our main event was to have the launch with Mackenzie Art Gallery. And so in 2017, we hooked up with them. And ever since then, we've been doing it with them and any other organizations. Like one year we had the Regina Museum that partnered with us. And so we always have different ones that are some the same, like the Ugandan and the Caribbean seem to have entertainers there for it. And our other events are, because of the honoring tree, we look at it as kind of a Statue of Liberty, where everyone is welcome to come. And we would have a walk there once it was put up every June 30th, or the last Saturday in June, and then we'd have our AGM there in the park, or at the Royal Saskatchewan Museum. And not many people attended. And last year, in 2020, I guess it was, we had partnered with the Open Door Society, and we're getting ready to start having a newcomers picnic. And the United Church and that work with newcomers, we're going to get involved in anyone else. And of course, COVID, it didn't happen. So we're going to look forward to that as our second event. And then the next day, we have our cultural village on July the 1st. That was in 2017 also. We got a grant to have different events for Canada's 150th. And so that was just for 2017, we were going to do that. But the city asked us back the next 2 years. And so now we've decided, well, we're there in the park, although we might change it from the park because they've cut off the electricity there. And that's making it difficult. We're thinking, we're having other thoughts about it, but and then in the next event is Kwanzaa in December. And that's an African holiday that we don't totally celebrate the whole thing. We just have the opening day, December 26th, and invite as many people as possible, and try to have young people entertain, and they just really enjoy that. So those are our events, and so we'll have those up on the website. Some frequently asked questions will be there. The homepage will be different. It will consist of different pictures that will rotate through. And of course, there's our honoring tree. There will be a page for that. There will be a page for news, and there will be a page for our board. I think the last board we had is still sitting there from 2017. So that's not so good, but it's ready to go when they're ready. And then there's resources and the virtual museum. And so I guess I was supposed to talk about the about page there. So I'll kind of skip through that. About our celebrations, and we do education and outreach too. We do a lot of speaking at schools in particular, if they ask us, and then we have different services like researching and documenting. That's going to be an ongoing thing. It's just really a lot to find there. Like we're finding one thing that has been good about having to do things virtual is we're being seen more all over the place, and we're getting calls from people that have history here. And so that's kind of interesting. There's people who, there's two families so far whose parents, their great grandparents or whatever, came to Canada in the early 1900s. And one of the reasons for both of these two families that came was because the man had a white wife and came to Canada, and now there's hardly anything left of their African ancestry, but they found it, they contacted us about that. So we're going to try to get some history going there for those families. We also partner with a lot of people to do different things, and we do sometimes participate in local, national, international conferences, and try to support and assist individuals of African descent that are currently trying to make a positive impact in Saskatchewan. So we have some resources, and the reason I put these up here is because they will be part of the display that we would take out to the different museums. So we have 6 fact sheets, and that's about the early people that came. And then this would be one of our pop-up banners we have. We have about 6 now, pop-up banners, but this was the last one we did. And what we did with this one is to try to show that there's the early settlers, there's Dr. Shad, there's the Shiloh Church, and there George Schmidt was from World War I. And I think a lot of people don't know that people of African descent were in the first 2 world wars. And there's the Indian Head baseball team, and then my Uncle Glenn was in the Second World War. And then now what we have is George Reed, of course, our Saskatchewan Rough Rider icon, our honoring tree, and our Miss World Canada. She was the first person of African descent in 2013 to be Miss World Canada. And of course, Ted Gilletta, our famous runner and now a member of the school board, or trustee of the school board, and our cultural village and our book. So that's the kind of thing. And what we hope that this would do is that they'd look at these pop-up banners and then go to our website, because there will be profiles on all of those people there, and that's where they would find them. And actually, how we had talked about the virtual museum, Saskatchewan, the SACHM museum being in different museums, was because when we asked for funding from the TD Bank, they came up with the idea, well, why don't we put one thing that you could do is, put a computer in there and people could look at your museum through there, but they've never followed up getting us computers into there. So one of our members, Larry Hesterman, he had been involved with the Royal Saskatchewan Museum, and he said, well, why don't we just get this together? And then he talked to somebody at Museums Association and decided that it would be a good idea to take out our display to museums. And since I think there's, how many museums are there? There's over 30 some, isn't there?
Yeah, we have 250 members. There's a lot of museums throughout.
Oh, okay. And so we had thought that like two a month, and keep moving them every month to 2 different places. For now is what. But if someone has better ideas, that would be wonderful. We'll do whatever to get our message out there. And what is my next one? Come on. No, I got it wrong. So our virtual museum consists of putting people or information under agriculture, arts and entertainment, business, community service, early settlers, education first. So the first is the first time that someone of African descent did something. The health, living histories. So that one we just ask families who want to let Saskatchewan know they're here, put their history on the website. Media and communications, the military. So there we're looking at people that have been in World War I, II, and like some we know went off to the Korean War. And if we get any that have been in the recent wars, we'd do that. Public service, so that would be looking more at the elected people. And religious service, because in the African descent community, a lot of people definitely have a faith background, and like looking at the Shiloh Church there. And that's interesting too. There's a Shiloh Church here in Regina, and when we had this celebration in 2019, we invited the media, and I was up there in Maidstone about to take some things to the site, and I got a phone call from CBC, and they said, well, we want to come to your event. And I said, okay, well, I'm just on my way there. Are you there now? And he said, yeah, well, we're just across the street. And I said, across the street? He said, yeah, well, we're at CBC here. And I said, well, yeah, it's not in Regina, it's in Maidstone. So that was kind of funny that they were in the wrong place, had the wrong place. So social services, human justice, and then sports, of course. There are a lot of people that were involved in sports, because back in the day, about the only thing, probably beside music, but not here in Saskatchewan, but the only thing that people of African ancestry seemed allowed to excel in were sports. So that's why we have a lot of there's basketball, there's football, there's athletics. We have all kinds of people that are in those. And I just want to show you what a profile might look like. So there's George Smith. It's not laid out correctly because I don't know how to do that here, but they're going to show us how to do it on the website, so we'll do it well. Like it says, this is only part of his. He was born in October 31st, 1897, in what is now Wagoner, Oklahoma, but was at that time Wagoner Indian Territory. And my great grandmother was born in Indian Territory. In fact, when she was born in 1865, possibly 67, no, I think it was 70s, it was 76, I think. Anyway, it was way after the Civil War had ended, but when she was born, they were still treating her people as slaves, and she had scars on her back from being beaten. But and he was the sixth of 12 children born to Rufus Sadler and Drusilla Smith, and he was named George Washington Smith at birth. But out of embarrassment, he later changed his name to George Willis Smith. Now, when I read that, I thought, we got to find out what he was embarrassed about, because I think everybody's going to be asking that question. What was he embarrassed about? I gather it was he was embarrassed being called Washington, which was really, a name from the South, probably. That's why he might have been embarrassed. And the family was living in Tulsa at the time. Rufus and Drusilla made the decision to immigrate to Saskatchewan in 1910, along with many other African-American people from Oklahoma and other points in the South. And then there's more that goes with that. So that is what I have. And there I stopped. Did it go away for you? Okay. So that's the kind of thing that we would have on display, is information about this, and then people would have to go to the virtual museum to find more information.